Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 9th of April 2022. This week has seen the new Wight Sense team settling into the offices here at Millbrook House. Just as a quick reminder, we have Mark, who is the Sensory Service Manager. We have Karen, who is looking after people with hearing and sight impairment. Paula, looking after people with hearing impairment. And Karen, yes, there's two Karens, looking after people with a visual impairment. The new team have moved into their offices very quickly and succinctly and are already back out seeing clients. So if you do need any help at all, don't hesitate to give the charity a call on 522205. That is 522205, or the Wight Sense team, who are also based at Millbrook, on 240222. With the arrival of the Wight Sense team, we have now almost completed the setup of our new low vision and low hearing room. This room is set up so that people can come and try equipment that we have here, and this does include some of the more expensive digital screen readers that we have on sale, all of which are at a reduced price as they are second-hand goods, together with the long-term equipment that can be loaned out through the Wight Sense team. This equipment is given out on long-term loan as a result of an assessment which is undertaken by the team. The team will come visit you on a one-to-one basis and look at your own personal needs and set together a plan to move forward with help and advice, equipment and referrals to other organisations as needed. I very much hope everybody is staying safe and that the weather will soon make a turn towards spring. Thank you, Lisa, CEO, Site for Wight.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Southern Vectis mourns the loss of former colleague and the Malishag painter. Staff at Southern Vectis are mourning the loss of a much-loved former colleague, Alan Cooley, best known for painting Malishags on the island's buses for almost 50 years. Alan retired in 2014 after some 49 and a half years as a painter for the island's bus operator. Before the use of vinyl, as seen on the green buses of today, Alan used his skill and a paintbrush to sign-write single-deckers, double-deckers and coaches with some rather memorable designs, including the pink double-decker bus promoting 150 years of Black Gang Chine and the bright orange Needles tour bus that served the West Wight, among others. Al was well known in the bus world for creating a very special trademark, the Malishag. On the buses he painted a Malishag, the Isle of Wight word for a caterpillar, appeared in various places on the bus, from small ones on the inside to ones painted across the entire roof. Alan's efforts saw him featured in the Sun newspaper in the early 2000s. Julian Rose, depot engineer for Southern Vectis, has said on behalf of the company, "This is a sad time for us all, and our thoughts are with Alan's family and friends as they come to terms with his loss. He was a popular colleague and played a critical role in bus painting before the introduction of vinyl." Alan sadly passed away on Monday, the 4th of April 2022.
This is Katrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Smashed it. Floating bridge windows damaged as it moors. Windows on the floating bridge have been smashed as it tried to moor up on its return to the Isle of Wight on Monday. The chain ferry returned to the Isle of Wight this morning after undergoing its 5-yearly safety inspection. It was due to be back in service between Cowes and East Cowes next week. However, as it attempted to moor up at East Cowes, the vessel hit the dockside. A video sent to Isle of Wight Radio shows the moment the vessel attempted to dock. It resulted in one shattered window and another with a gaping hole. Speaking to Isle of Wight Radio, Councillor Carl Love said, "I'm happy to say our bridge is back. However, our floating bridge returned to its usual spectacular way of causing headlines as it crashes accidentally into the wall. Accidents do happen, but this floating bridge just seems to have a mind of its own. It's as though it does not want to be there without making a statement its own. It is very windy out there today, and I know another staff will have done their best. It seems the wind and the tide have got the better of them today." An Isle of Wight Council spokesman said, "While manoeuvring the vessel into its temporary berth, it made contact with the GKN wall. 2 windows were broken. These are on the south side of the vessel and will be boarded up tomorrow. It is not anticipated that this will impact the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency MCA inspection or return to service date of 13th of April 2022.
This is an article from On the Wight, read by Terry. Ukrainian Pop Up Cafe hugely successful and raises more than £2,000 for humanitarian aid. Driven by a feeling of helplessness watching what was going on in Ukraine, Caroline Gurney Champion set about organising something to raise money for humanitarian aid. It was a huge success. Congratulations are in order for all those who helped make the Ukrainian Pop Up Cafe a huge success. Held last Saturday in Bryston's Village Hall, a whopping £2,092.95 was raised in support of the vital humanitarian work of the Disasters Emergency Committee, that's DEC. The event was organised by Caroline Gurney Champion, Gillian Belbin and Jenny Pentelow, with the help of many other volunteers on the day. In the run-up to the event, the organisers had been beavering away in the kitchen, preparing a range of delicious dishes from Olia Hercules' wonderful cookbook, Mamushka, Recipes from Ukraine and Beyond. Among others, they included healthy cabbage slaw with toasted sunflower seeds, a green bean and pepper salad, beetroot and prune salad, as well as a delicious borscht, that's soup, all served with fresh sourdough bread. There was a fantastic spread of cakes on offer to have afterwards with a cup of tea or coffee. There was a friendly welcome from the volunteers who all helped out enormously on the day. A table with information about Ukraine was manned by 2 Ukrainian residents living on the island, Roxana and her daughter, both of whom were donning traditional Ukrainian dress and thoroughly enjoyed the day. They'd also prepared some dishes to share on the day, including dumplings that are traditionally cooked in vodka. Speaking after the event, Caroline Gurney Champion told News on Wight, "Everyone loved the food and there was a steady flow of people from all over the island. As well as our 9 or 10 volunteers, there were lots of others making food for the event and countless plates of cakes turned up on the day. We're grateful to everyone who helped make it a success." Caroline says she was driven to organise the event because she had a feeling of helplessness watching what was happening in Ukraine and wanted to do something to help. After enjoying some food, 7-year-old Liam was the first to donate £1 and plant a sunflower seed to grow at home.
This is Alison reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio entitled Invoice Scam Warning as Con accounts for more than half the money lost to fraud by small businesses. Businesses are being urged to stay vigilant when paying bills or changing suppliers, as new data from Barclays reveals the amount lost to invoice scams is increasing. Invoice scams when fraudsters send bogus invoices, often purporting to be from a familiar supplier, accounted for 55% of all money lost to swindlers in the past 3 months, with an average loss of £2,100. The figure represents a 6% increase in money earned by scammers from invoice scams year on year. This is despite the volume of scams going down, indicating that scammers are succeeding in fewer, higher value thefts. A poll of UK businesses shows 85% worry about the effect of price hikes on their business, which could leave them open to scams as they search for the best deals. Barclays is warning business owners to be on their guard, as fraudsters can impersonate suppliers and request updated bank details or information. While invoice scams have been the most profitable in the last 3 months, purchase scams, where businesses buy items that do not arrive, were the most common type. This was followed by impersonation scams, where fraudsters pretend to be from trusted organisations.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Urgent plea to Isle of Wight residents amid perfect storm of NHS pressures increasing COVID rates. Health leaders have issued an urgent plea to communities amid a perfect storm of rising pressure on services and rocketing COVID-19 rates. It comes as demand on services and the volume of 999 calls continue to soar as teams continue to do all they can to ensure patients receive safe, high-quality care. Latest figures show almost every hospital bed across Hampshire and Isle of Wight is full. More than 650 people with COVID-19 are being cared for in hospitals across the area, more than 2.5 times higher than in early January during the peak of winter. More than 2,800 staff working for local NHS organisations are off sick, with almost half of sickness absences due to COVID-19. The NHS is always there for anyone who needs help, but these combined pressures mean it is crucial that more is done to help frontline teams working round the clock to continue to provide safe care to patients across Hampshire and Isle of Wight. Steve Parker, Medical Director at Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said, "Our emergency department is very busy and hospital staff are working hard to care for high numbers of people needing urgent care. Our plea to the community is, if you think you need A&E, please call NHS 111 first. The NHS 11 team, who are also based here on the island, can provide support straight away and ensure you get the right treatment quickly. Should you need to come to hospital, they can arrange a time for you to arrive. If you are unsure or need medical advice, you can also use NHS 111 online. Please help us to help you." Due to significant and sustained pressures, health leaders are having to make some very difficult decisions to prioritise patients who are most in need of emergency care. This means that people arriving at the emergency department, ED, who don't need emergency care will be redirected to other, more appropriate services to ensure patients experiencing life-threatening emergencies or illness are cared for in a timely way. Patients will be discharged from hospital when they have received all the acute care they need, even if they continue to test positive for COVID-19. Relatives and carers are asked to ensure their loved one can be discharged quickly to help free up beds for those who need them. They are also asked to support loved ones with their ongoing care needs in the short term, once they have been discharged from hospital. Other asks include staying in contact with the ward they are on so everyone is clear about and prepared for an expected date of discharge. Supporting arrangements to provide suitable clothing and shoes for the person being discharged. Helping with transporting patients home. If you can help, take a relative, friend or neighbour home when they are ready to leave hospital. It helps them get home more quickly. This action is being taken because people working in the NHS across the board in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, at GP surgeries, NHS 111, ED, mental health services, ambulance and community services, face greater pressure than at any point since the first peak of the pandemic. Dr. Derek Sanderman, Chief Medical Officer for Hampshire and Isle of Wight Integrated Care System, said people working across health and care in Hampshire and Isle of Wight continue to go above and beyond the call of duty to give their patients safe care. With staff sickness rates well above average, rising cases of COVID-19 and very high numbers of people needing treatment, we face a perfect storm. But there are some very specific ways in which people can help the frontline NHS and care teams. If you have a loved one who is in hospital, please help staff to help get them home quickly when they are well enough. Even if they are still testing positive for COVID, that is enormously important to help us make beds available for those in greatest need. Our emergency departments are for those in greatest need. If you aren't quite sure what help you need, please contact 111.nhs.uk to get the right help for you. More information on which service to use and when is available here. This includes mental health, care and dentistry, as well as urgent treatment centres. If you need urgent care, but it is not a life-threatening emergency, call 111 or visit 111 online and you will be directed to the right service.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Former Shanklin care home could be turned into 6 flats and a house. A former care home, which was closed following a damning watchdog report, could be turned into flats and a house. Firebank on Crescent Road in Shanklin was shut in September last year by the Care Quality Commission, CQC, when inspectors found people did not receive a service that ensured they were safe. Inspectors also said people were not cared for in a safe environment, finding a number of concerns, including unsafe escape routes. Now plans have been unveiled by Ian Schaff of Wight Property Partners to transform the home, which once housed up to 19 residents, into 6 flats and a house. The Victorian property will be split into 4 times 1 bed and 2 times 2 bed flats, along with a 4-bedroomed house. Little alteration is proposed for the building, which was extended and altered multiple times while it was a care home. Planning documents say it is not viable to change it further to meet current care standards. Phil Salmon, planning agent on behalf of the development, said the conversion will require internal changes that are sympathetic to the original form and provide an effective and efficient use of space. Mr. Salmon says the existing building has some design value due to the original Victorian villa style and offers an opportunity to promote a sustainable residential scheme on previously developed land. As part of the proposal, there will be 8 parking spaces and part of the garden sectioned off to go with the house. It is hoped, should the scheme be approved, it could be brought forward quickly and provide new residential units in a positive manner. To view the plans, 22/00317/FUL, you can view the Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until 4th of May.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. It's coming home? Plans for Knighton Football Club to return to former ground. It's coming home? Knighton Football Club, NFC, is trying to return to its former home of 60 years after planning issues kept them away. Plans have been submitted by the club to install temporary mobile outbuilding changing rooms and an equipment store at its former home ground, Springhead, on Blackgang Road. NFC had been based at Springhead since the 1960s, but since houses were built in one corner a few years ago, where its former changing rooms and clubhouse stood, the club has been homeless. Planning permission was granted for 4 houses, but it was stipulated to developers, Billings Group, that temporary changing facilities should be provided for NFC before the dwellings could be built. The houses were built with no facilities provided for the football club, despite a letter from Knighton and Whitwell Parish Council drawing the Isle of Wight Council's attention to it in 2018. The planning permission also included an agreement for a £40,000 financial contribution to NFC from the Billings Group and a 125-year lease of Springhead at a peppercorn rent. Football has not been played at Springhead since 2017, and it costs the club around £900 a year to play elsewhere, usually in Newport. While the money has been raised by volunteers and supporters of the club, the situation is not sustainable to continue. In a justification statement submitted to the Isle of Wight Council, the club says the sport needs to return to Springhead as soon as possible. They said, "The fact there is no football being played in the village means the youngsters aren't inspired to start playing and get involved with the club. The club has been unsuccessful in applying for grant funding to build permanent facilities at Springhead, which are likely to cost over £250,000, so it says its only hope now of restoring football in Knighton is for the temporary solution to be adopted. The proposed buildings will sit in an area of outstanding natural beauty, but will be clad in timber boardings and screened from view by new and existing hedgerows. Work on the temporary facilities started at the site in October last year, but is yet to finish. To view the plans, 22/0506/FUL, you can visit the Council's planning register. Comments can be submitted until May the 4th.
This is Alison, reading an article from the Island Echo entitled Brakes Applied on Taxi Fee Hike Over Objections from Islanders. The brakes have been put on a controversial increase in taxi fares on the Isle of Wight after objections. The decision will now be made by leading cabinet members later this year, which means prices will not go up at the start of May. Most charges have not risen since 2014, and the planned rise was described as significant. In March, the Isle of Wight Council's licensing committee voted overwhelmingly in favour of the price hike, which would see a £1.10 increase on a 2-mile journey charged on the lowest tariff. The island's taxi trade has been supportive of the increase due to rising running costs. However, concerns had been raised by council officers that passengers may not support the move. Committee member Councillor Gary Peace told the March meeting the charges were already ridiculously high. A public consultation closed at the end of March, and without valid objections, the increase would have taken effect from the 1st of May. Now, the Council's Cabinet members will meet on the 12th of May to decide whether the increase in fees will go ahead for Hackney carriages. More information about the consultation responses will be published in Cabinet papers ahead of the meeting on the 4th of May. The Isle of Wight Council did not wish to comment at this time. What are the changes? The initial flag drop or hire fee, also covering the first half mile of the journey, increases by 50p. Each quarter mile after the flag drop increases between 10p and 50p depending on the tariff. The taxi waiting time during a trip increases between 20p and 70p a minute depending on the tariff. Sundays would be charged at the same rate as bank and public holidays, becoming more expensive, moving into Tariff 2. The cost for transporting animals doubles from 50p to £1 per animal. Soiling charge increases to £100 from £70. Tariff hours. Travel will cost more from 2000 hours through to 0600 hours, when the higher tariff used to start at 2200 hours. The fares set are the maximum amount drivers can charge, so some companies could charge less.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. St Mary's Church in Ryde upgraded to Grade 2 star listed. St Mary's Roman Catholic Church, located on High Street in Ryde, has had its listed status upgraded from Grade 2 to Grade 2 star by the Department for Digital, Cultural, Media and Sports, DCMS, on the advice of Historic England. In a move welcomed by the Catholic Diocese of Portsmouth, the building is now among the top 8% of all listed buildings in England, meaning that it is of more than special interest both architecturally and historically. The Church of St Mary was built between 1844 and 1846 and endowed by Elizabeth Georgina Burrell, Countess of Clare, 1793 to 1879. It is a fine example of an early Victorian Catholic church and one of the oldest in the Catholic Diocese of Portsmouth. It was first listed in 1972. The upgrade in status will allow further work between the church and the local groups and organisations to be realised from increased revenue and tourism to the area, allowing the strengthening and development of further community-based opportunities and initiatives. Bishop Philip Egan, Catholic Diocese of Portsmouth, has said, "I'm delighted to hear that the Church of St Mary has been given Grade 2 star listed status. This recognises that it is a site of special interest, not just to the Church, but to the country too." Sally Thompson, Project Manager, Ryde Heritage Action Zone, HAZ, has said, "The upgraded listing announcement for St Mary's Church is most welcome news for Ryde's High Street Heritage Action Zone, as we continue to explore options for the sympathetic regeneration of the former convent school and the estate's grounds to the rear of the church, with the parish of members of the local community, along with our partners from Historic England, Ryde Town Council and the Isle of Wight Council. The church is now Grade 2 star listed for the following reasons. Architectural interest. It is an accomplished, relatively early example of the ecclesiastical designs of Joseph Stanislaus Hansen, one of the foremost church architects of the 19th century. who was responsible for the design of the church and the attached presbytery. It retains high-quality finishings, including several phases of paintwork and stained glass attributed to various important 19th century craftspeople, most notably Nathaniel and Philip Westlake, as well as John Hardman and Company. The original layout of the church survives well, enhanced by late side chapels and extensions, including work by J.S. Hanson. The more than special architectural interest is principally found in the design quality of the church, which is of particular note in the instance given the constraints of the building plot in a prominent position on Ryde High Street. Historical interest. Built in the period between the 1829 Catholic Emancipation Act and the reinstatement of the Catholic hierarchy in England 1850, the church represents very well a period of the increasing boldness of Catholic church design, aided by the generous support of its private patroness, the Countess of Clare.
This is Katrina reading an article from Island Echo. HMO plans for the upper floors of former shop in Ryde High Street. Aspire Ryde is looking to convert the first and second floors of a former Just Home store in Ryde High Street into a 5-bed house of multi-occupation, HMO. A planning application has been submitted for 35 to 36 High Street in a bid to convert floors previously used as additional retail floor space and offices into 5 bedrooms and communal living space. If the scheme is given the green light by the Council's planning department, the HMO will be part of a rented housing scheme, enabling members of the community to be appropriately housed prior to securing long-term accommodation. Occupation will be provided on assured short-hold tenancies to people who are likely to be living in substandard or insecure accommodation elsewhere, who are likely to be in danger of homelessness, but may figure low on the statutory housing register system. Planning permission was previously granted in July 2020 to convert the 2 floors into 4 flats. The new proposal utilises the existing property without any need for demolition or extensions, with no external changes proposed. Under the plans, access will be via an alleyway to the rear of the High Street shops accessed from Star Street. The first floor will be used as a communal kitchen, dining room and a single bedroom with an ensuite bathroom. The second floor will accommodate the other 4 bedrooms, all served by ensuite bathrooms. Aspire Ryde currently occupies the High Street building for its community hub. The ground floor and half of the upper floors will continue to be part of the community hub.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. Isle of Wight Community Food Pantry Scheme opens. Islanders struggling against rising costs will soon be able to join a new food pantry scheme where members can enjoy an array of produce to keep their kitchens stocked up. The island's first community pantries are set to open in Ryde, East Cowes and Ventnor, giving those in need a helping hand by getting food at a lower rate on a weekly basis. Items found in the pantry will be a range of fresh, frozen, tinned and dry food, which will change on a weekly basis. Access to the community pantry is by way of membership, and for a small weekly contribution, members receive food to a significantly higher value. The Isle of Wight Council is spearheading the scheme through its successful Connect for Communities programme, with funding from the Department for Work and Pensions. Councillor Debbie Andre, Cabinet Lead for Children's Services, said, "For a contribution of around £5 per weekly visit, a member will receive over £15 worth of fresh, frozen and general food. Anyone can have access to the local community pantry, but they will need to sign up to become a member directly with the pantry. If you are a community organisation such as a school, charity or group and would like to help in setting up a pantry, please get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you." The first 3 pantries will be located at Oakfield Primary School Ryde, Community Spirited East Cowes and Baby Box in Ventnor. Funding is available to set up more pantries, and the Council is keen for community groups and organisations to apply. Organisations interested in opening a community pantry on the island should contact Laura Hales, Connect for Communities Project Manager, by email at connectforcommunities, and the 4 is a number, all lowercase, all as one word, connectforcommunities at iow.gov.uk, or by calling 821000. Further details and an application form can be found on the Connect for Communities web page. While Connect for Communities will oversee the initial setup of the pantries, the successful groups will manage the day-to-day running.
This is Alison, reading an article from On the Wight entitled "Norris Castle Developers Hit Back at Misinformation and Unqualified Statements." Clint Wellington says his plans are the only long-term viable option necessary to safeguard the heritage assets and retain the estate. The developers of derelict Norris Castle in East Cowes have responded to criticism of the plans after the project was dubbed a millionaire's playground. The major planning application would see the Grade 1 listed castle turned into a 5-star hotel, among other plans. It was fiercely opposed by East Cowes Town Council, ECTC, last week, and has resulted in a 12-page objection. Responding to the concerns, Clint Wellington, NCEG Director, questions some unqualified statements made at the ECTC meeting and on social media, and said the application was now becoming a political football. He said, "This application is not a political football, a supermarket application or fracking site that can be refused without consequence, but an asset of national historic importance we have been trying to find a solution for 7 years. We cannot proceed commercially unless we have a viable solution and have been totally transparent throughout, patiently and professionally responding to every request for additional information, no matter how unreasonable. We can do no more and have run out of time, along with the buildings, following 70 years of total neglect in plain sight." Among concerns for East Cowes residents and councillors was the viability of the development, plans for housing and access to the site across the public esplanade, along with the increased traffic that may bring. Following the meeting, at which the developers Norris Castle Estate Group, NCEG, did not attend, nor was a requested statement read out on their behalf, they said they had hoped the application would speak for itself and people would not listen to misinformation being spread online. Mr. Wellington said the best consultants in the land had advised the design of every element of the application, and if there are any challenges to the application, they should be done so through equally qualified experts. Raising issue with comments about the castle not being in as worse a condition as was thought, Mr. Wellington said chartered structural engineers have stated the current patch-up and monitor repairs being undertaken on the building, requested by the Isle of Wight Council and Historic England, are ineffective and nothing like the long-term solution required. Mr. Wellington said their proposals were the only long-term viable option necessary to safeguard the heritage assets and retain the estate. Traffic consultants are in talks with Island Roads, Mr. Wellington says, to address highways concerns raised. Addressing the housing issues, Mr. Wellington said it is necessary to maximise the real estate values of the properties so fewer can be built, reducing the harm to the listed estate.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. World War II barge commandeered by the Nazis that became a houseboat to be scrapped. 100-year-old barge that survived the Nazis in World War II and later a devastating fire in Bembridge will now be scrapped. Rindstroom 4, currently a houseboat moored at Bembridge Harbour, was built in 1922 to carry grain on the Dutch canal system. In the Second World War, it was commandeered by the Nazis to carry munitions on the River Rhine. Fast forward several decades to 2004, and the veteran vessel was spotted by Robert Lowe, moored at the Odessa boatyard in Newport. Robert bought the vessel, which he then painstakingly converted to a houseboat in 2015. The houseboat suffered a devastating fire which destroyed the wheelhouse. The boat was then renovated in Hythe and returned to the island. Unfortunately, having been renovated twice, Rindstroom then suffered structural damage whilst having her hull repainted in Cowes in 2020. Now, following an 18-month investigation by Mr. Lowe's insurers, they have decided it is too expensive to repair and have written the vessel off. The barge will now be taken away by a Portsmouth-based salvage company on the 19th of April to be scrapped in a Hythe shipyard. Robert Lowe and his wife have had to move into temporary accommodation while Robert begins the task of building a new houseboat. He intends to convert an old Thames hopper barge, which he is transporting from Rotherham to the island. Robert believes his new barge will take a year's renovation work to become livable and hopes to move into his new houseboat in 2023. He says of the scrapping of the Rindstroom 4, "It is sad end for this grand old barge that has made it to 100 years old and also survived the Nazis in World War II."
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Plans unveiled for new Medina College classroom. Plans have been unveiled for a new building classroom at Medina College, adding the environment to the curriculum. The new structure is proposed to be suitable for pupils to have a covered and secure place to undertake outdoor-related lessons. Documents submitted to the Isle of Wight Council show the small building will be built near other school buildings if approved. Planning agents on behalf of the school, Elmstone Architectural, say it will provide students with an outdoor, environment and sustainability-focused curriculum. The new building would also be hidden from the view of dwellings on Fairley Road by the existing hedgerow. To view the plans, 22/00556/FUL, you can visit the Council's planning register, Comments can be submitted until May 4th.
This is an article from On the Wight, read by Terry. Owners plans to turn popular local hotspot into 2 flats. The application claims the once popular restaurant is some distance from the town centre and that the current tenants have been unable to sustain a viable restaurant there. The owners of a property on Ventnor seafront, which has over the last 20 years been home to several popular and successful pubs and restaurant businesses, is planning to convert the ground floor into 2 flats. Once the Richmond Hotel, the building was converted into flats and a pub nearly 20 years ago. Plans have been submitted by Stag Rock Ventnor Limited, a company based in St Anne's in Lancashire, set up in 2019, who intend to turn the restaurant into 2 two-bedroom flats. Most recently, the building was known for the popular local hotspots Ale and Oyster and Hallow Sailor, but the application claims that the current tenants have been unable to sustain a viable restaurant there. The application goes on to claim the building is away from the commercial frontage and certainly some distance from the town centre. It is the only commercial affair within an otherwise residential frontage immediately west of Alma Road. According to the planning agents, there is a lack of commercial bin storage, the toilets are in an awkward position and there is no commercial gas supply in the kitchen. To view the plans, 22/00558/3 OPA, you can view the Isle of Wight Council's planning register. The public consultation runs until the 4th of May 2022.
This is Alison, reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio entitled Tour of Britain's Isle of Wight Route Revealed. The Isle of Wight's leg of this year's Tour of Britain will be the toughest ending to the event in modern history, organisers say. Riders are being welcomed to the island for the conclusion of the cycling event on September the 11th. Stage 8 will see riders start in ride before embarking on a 150-kilometre route to the Needles. Not only will the route showcase the island to a worldwide TV audience, fans will be able to catch the race in multiple locations, owing to the way it loops round the island. Among the towns featuring will be Newport, as well as Cowes, Sandown, Shanklin, Totland, Ventnor and Yarmouth. The final 20 kilometres will take the peloton along the stunning military road, which offers stunning panoramic views out across the English Channel towards the Needles landmark attraction. This year's race culminates with a 2-kilometre climb up to Tennyson Down, the final 400 metres of which average a gradient of 9.6%, making it the toughest ending to any Tour of Britain in modern history. Mick Bennett, Tour of Britain race director, said, "As promised, when we unveiled the Tour of Britain's host regions in February, this year's race features a number of surprises, none more so than hilltop finishes to start and end the 8 days of world-class competition. Creating a route that encourages aggressive racing and brave tactics from day one will enhance the reputation of the race, leaving the 1 million plus spectators watching on in person for free with long-lasting memories, showcase the stunning beauty of our host venues, and repeatedly entertain a worldwide audience. ITV4 will continue to broadcast live flag-to-flag coverage of every stage, as well as a nightly highlights show, allowing fans in the UK to watch wherever they are. The race will also be shown in over 150 countries worldwide, in part thanks to the event's partnerships with Eurosport and the Global Cycling Network. This year's Tour of Britain will comprise the following stages. Stage 1, Sunday the 4th of September, Aberdeen to Glenshee Ski Centre. Stage 2, Monday the 5th of September, Howick to Duns. Stage 3, Tuesday the 6th of September, Durham to Sunderland. Stage 4, Wednesday the 7th of September, Redcar to Duncombe Park, Helmsley. Stage 5, Thursday the 8th of September, West Bridgeford to Mansfield. Stage 6, Friday the 9th of September, Tewkesbury to Gloucester. Stage 7, Saturday the 10th of September, West Bay to Ferndown. Stage 8, Sunday the 11th of September, Ryde to the Needles.
Before we start the second part of the county press, here is this week's Society's news. There is no swimming this week or next due to the school Easter holidays, and we will resume on the 25th of April. The group are looking for more members to join them at Medina Leisure Centre every Monday between 1:30 and 2:30.
Coffee and chat is on every Wednesday at Millbrook House, 10 a.m. to 11:30. Only £1 for cake and coffee. Please come along for a chat, and members of staff will be there for any assistance with equipment and information.
Our Mix and Mingle group is on a Thursday at Millbrook House between 10:30 and 2 p.m. This week, our members will enjoy an Easter party with entertainment.
Sadly, due to lack of numbers, our Millbrook Milers has been cancelled, but hopefully we will organise again in May and members can join us for coffee and cake with a sociable mile walk.
Remember, our Easter chicks are on sale at Millbrook House for only £2 each, which includes a chocolate egg, or you can buy a beautiful basket of chicks containing a family of 5 for only £10. The perfect Easter gift for family and friends.
And a big thank you goes to our volunteers who braved the terrible weather on Wednesday and manned our stall in Asda. We raised £104 selling our wonderful Easter chicks and speaking to the public about the charity.
If you are interested in our members forum group, it is on Tuesday, April the 12th at 10:30 a.m. Please call the office to let us know you are available to attend. The more, the merrier.
Please note the office will be closed from Thursday 4 p.m. until Tuesday at 9 p.m. due to the Easter break. We wish you all a very happy Easter.
The charity has a fundraising, pudding and quiz night on the 29th of April at Millbrook House, a maximum of 4 people per team, and the charge is £5 per person. If you would like to enter a team, please call the office. We have a maximum capacity of 10 teams. And this is the second part of the Talking News, which is read today by myself, Morris,
and Megan.
And we begin with letters to the editor. This is a letter headed Visa Problems and comes from G. Barnum of Sandown. Matt Weaver's letter, My Heart Bleeds, which was in the county press on the 1st of April, made me reflect. There seems to be a huge mismatch between the Home Office dragging its feet providing visas for Ukrainian refugees and over 100,000 UK families willing to offer accommodation for these displaced refugees. So what might the problem be? Some ministers have cited the need for security checks but haven't explained precisely what might be concerning them. It is staggering how much of London is now owned by rich Russians, and of course there are many people making huge sums of money offering services to these wealthy oligarchs. There will be those with influence and in government who understandably will not want to kill the golden goose. Perhaps some of these oligarchs who oil the wheels of our political parties with generous donations have expressed concern that they would feel much safer and would rather not rub shoulders with Ukrainian refugees, particularly if some of these Ukrainian refugees feel hatred toward Russians, whether in Russia or in Russia's newly adopted capital city, London. Of course, I might be completely wrong, but I can't think of another reason for our government reluctance to ease the visa process.
And we have MP's replies to Islanders' letter. This is from Bob Seeley, of course. Thank you to those 3 Islanders who wrote to the county press on March the 25th and copied me in. 1 in relation to Ventnor, 1 Ray energy bills, and 1 on Wight Link. I'll answer each briefly here. Those who wrote have received fuller responses. Firstly, Ventnor and disruption caused by roadworks taking place. I share constituents' frustrations with roadworks and temporary traffic lights. However, although this disruption is certainly inconvenient, it is for an important purpose. Fibre to premises broadband is being installed across all of the island, and it is being done to a higher standard than the mainland. That's good for jobs, businesses, and our future prosperity. Secondly, the cost of fuel and energy. Things are getting more expensive. We are in a period of inflation caused primarily by COVID and the Ukraine war. Some states in Europe have even higher inflation than we do. Chancellor Rishi Sunak has cut fuel duty by 5 pence per litre. We have also brought in several schemes to help families and individuals. Fuel duty was frozen and now reduced. On the island, we will get a share of the following national schemes: a 500 million household support to help with essentials, multi-million pounds funds to help households with rent arrears, for discretionary housing payments and for discretionary heating support, as well as the warm home discount, winter fuel payments and cold weather payments. Rishi has also committed to getting the tax burden down to help support families. More broadly, on energy, there has been a 20-year failure to plan for our future that sadly began in the early 2000s with the cancellation of a new generation of nuclear reactors. Only now are we putting in place a long-term plan. It's a failure of politicians from all parties. Renewables are important as part of a mix of energy sources. However, capacity is nowhere near enough to meet supply, and for politicians to claim otherwise is to simply mislead people. Likewise, net zero by 2030 is simply unachievable. Oil and gas will be used in the transition phase, and as such, it makes no sense to import at great cost energy from other countries. We should be producing it ourselves. Therefore, we need to continue to invest in the North Sea as we transition to a carbon-free economy. That transition is not going to happen overnight, and again, anyone claiming otherwise is simply misleading people. We also produce 1 and at most 2% of all carbon emissions, so to say that we can save the world single-handed is also nonsense. We should, however, do what we can while realising the importance of energy security for our people and our prosperity. Thirdly, Wight Link and the ferry timetables. It's clear that we need more resilience built into the service, especially in the winter months. I also want to see further workplace reforms from Wight Link so that they can run more flexible services which can meet the needs of islanders. Both Wight Link and Hover Travel need to offer late services as part of their moral obligation to the island. I continue to make this point to the ferry firms. Despite having no power over them, I am doing my best to make them understand their ethical obligation to the island. Thank you for all 3 letters.
And this is from Susan Williams of Peterborough, and it's headlined Nuisance Dogs. While on holiday in Sandown last September, an out-of-control dog was allowed by its owner to keep following my husband all the time, nipping at him and his clothes. When my husband objected, he was subjected to a tirade of verbal abuse. This was a prolonged incident, and the dog was very persistent. My sympathies to the people concerned in the incident on the Dover in the County Press the 25th of March 22, and I hope the lady has a speedy recovery. We are very wary now when visiting, although as we love the island so much we will continue to come. We are happy that our daughter is now grown up, but I would be scared of visiting with a child.
And another doggy letter, and this is from Lawrence Pendrell, Sandown. My wife and I are nature lovers, bird watchers and amateur photographers, and as islanders we regularly visit the beauty spots around the Isle of Wight. Unfortunately, these areas are becoming more and more desecrated by dog fouling to the extent you can smell it. A lot of the time dogs are off the leash and unsupervised, even when signage says dogs should be on a lead only. Incidents occur all too often, and yes, the owner is apologetic, but it would not have occurred if the dog was on a leash. Of those dog owners who do pick up the excreta in bags and dispose of it correctly, well done. However, it seems a large proportion do not, and others all too often decorate the surrounding bushes and foliage with the bags. It takes years for these plastic bags to break down. I think the worst part is the offenders don't think they're doing anything wrong, and if approached, are aggressive. I wonder if their houses have excreta bags hanging around in the lounge, or maybe decorating the Christmas tree. The island is, after all, our house and home. I was always taught when in areas of nature and wildlife, the only thing you leave behind is your footprints, and the only thing you take are photos and your memories.
And this is a letter from Mark Coventry of Northwood, and headlining Why Bring Beavers Here? The Isle of Wight climate is not suitable for beavers that store their winter food, branches from the trees they have felled, under ice in very cold water. With island winter temperatures regularly reaching up to 14 degrees, these food stores will not keep fresh until the spring. Beaver dams will only help in attenuating flooding caused by long periods of light rain, whereas most damaging floods are the result of heavy rain, and in these cases the dams will be overtopped, causing them to fail, at which point downstream will get the full force of the rain, plus the water stored in the dam and the brash that the dam was built of. This is extremely likely to reform downstream at a bridge or culvert, where you really do not want to block the flow. Most island trees, oak, ash, beech, sycamore, blackthorn and many more, will not survive having their roots underwater for extended periods of time. Trees that will not coppice will be lost as soon as beavers ring bark it. Although beavers may not be protected by law as long as they are held in captivity, as soon as they are released or escape, the beaver and their dams will be fully protected by law as a wild animal. Once protected, it becomes very difficult and lengthy to move the animals or disturb their structures. Beavers will fell trees over quite a few days of chewing, and when they feel it is ready to come down, they will withdraw until it comes down. This represents a very great danger to anybody in the vicinity, such as the people coming to look at the beavers. Again, who will be responsible? Just to query the suggestion that the beavers are going to be kept under control and therefore kept in captivity, in which case, why bring them to the island? Illegal maverick releasing of illegally imported beavers numbers up to 400 in Scotland and around 200 south of the border. There is no reason to assume that as soon as we have beavers on the island, these maverick rewilders will add to their numbers without any control. Finally, I would like to repeat, as in Scotland, once they are out as wild animals, they and their dams will get total protection, and the landowner, where they establish themselves, will be responsible for the damage they cause. Beavers have no natural predators in the UK, let alone on the island. The idea from the beaver group that a 5 to 7 kilo fox may take on a 25 to 30 kilogram beaver with a very serious bite, or would be brave enough to look at one of its kits, it is as real as the rest of their ideas. At a maximum population, when they have taken over the island, will not be enough to make a genetically stable population without building a rope bridge across the Solent. The beaver people may be able to control the first pair or two they release, but after that they will be protected animals doing whatever they want.
And from Graham Middleton, from the Ventnor Enhancement Fund, he is the chairman. On a beautiful sunny Thursday morning recently, members of the Ventnor Enhancement Fund, VEF, together with local residents and members of Ventnor's Wellbeing Cafe, met up to scatter native wildflower seed bombs along the base of the cliffs between Ventnor and Bonchurch. The walk was the brainchild of Maureen Corley, former mayoress of the town, who raised funds to purchase the seed bombs via the VEF Inner Wheel and a fundraising event in the number 24 hotel. The enthusiastic team set off towards Bonchurch and took great delight in hurling seeds along the base of the cliff, being careful to avoid the area specially designated for plants which support the population of Glanville fritillary butterflies that can be seen along this stretch of coastline. Whether the efforts of those involved result in an enhanced number of wildflowers in the future remains to be seen, but there was no doubt that the invigorating walk on a stunning day by the sea improved the well-being of all involved.
Telephone know-how, writes Peter Wight from Ryde. With reference to the article Plans to Ditch Landlines scrapped in the county press on the 1st of April, I noticed what appears to be a cordless telephone pictured. For those who may not be aware, this type of phone will stop working while there is an outage of electric in the home. For those living in a poor mobile phone signal area who rely on a cordless phone, it might be prudent to have a corded phone available for plugging into a landline socket during a power cut. Basic corded phones which rely solely on backed-up power supplied through the landline can be purchased new for less than £10.
And a letter entitled Parking Debacle Left Us Upset. And this is from Stephen French, Ningwood. Recently, my friend tried to pay £1 evening charge at Orchard Lee Car Park, Shanklin. This was approximately at 6:30 p.m. However, despite following the usual instructions, no ticket was given. He tried 2 or 3 times. I tried and my wife tried, all with no success. In fact, my friend lost his £1. A kind gentleman had a phone and paid for my wife, so we did not receive any penalty. We both wrote a large notice explaining our predicament and left. However, later on, my friend was distressed and annoyed to receive the usual penalty charge of £25. He wrote to the department to challenge this and was told that he obviously did not follow the instructions. There was nothing wrong with the machine and he should have paid by phone. Also, traffic wardens are instructed to ignore all messages put in windscreens which we did not know. Neither of us had a phone, nor did we see the instructions below. We are over 70 and not able to use mobile phone technology, but are pretty intelligent people otherwise. I also wrote a letter challenging the decision and criticising the wording, implying that we were not very intelligent, could not follow simple instructions, and basically were lying. We were trying to cheat the council out of a paltry £1. I find this insulting and unjust. The officer has refused to accept the accounts of honest witnesses, and I do not accept that she should be judge and jury over this. I had to write this as I felt upset at the distress caused to my friend again over £1. Most people would find this a heartless response to reject the penalty when she has the power of discretion, which would have helped rather than upset a decent member of the public.
Dave Bowerman of Buckingham writes, "It's very bad. On March the 30th, I happened to see the letter to Bob Seeley MP regarding the appalling ferry service by both Whitelink and Red Funnel, which I heartily agree with. I visit my son and family on a regular basis and have often been inconvenienced and delayed by cancellations without warning. Any discussion with staff is met by a distinctive lack of interest. The cost of the service is very high, but the quality of the service is very low. Is there a customers' forum to take the ferry companies to task? And Robert Swinton of Ventnor writes, a fair day's pay? Are half-truths hiding reality? Jacob Rees-Mogg is perfectly correct when he says Britain has frozen more Russian assets than any other European country. However, what Mr. Rees-Mogg conveniently fails to mention is that there is considerably more dirty Russian money sloshing around in the Britain than any other European country. When we look at who actually owns P&O, is it any wonder all its UK workforce have been sacked, with new cheaper migrant workers employed instead? Should we really be handing over the running of Britain's new free ports to these kind of people? Or does our government secretly admire this foreign owner's business acumen? Our government constantly boasts that more and more people are in work, but how many are juggling several insecure low-paid jobs simply to make ends meet? Whatever happened to a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, with the dignity of a salary one can afford to bring up a family on? Perhaps applying stress about how one is going to survive from day to day is a necessary prerequisite when in-work slavery is seen as the model for ensuring Britain remains economically competitive.
And now we go on to Wight memories and nostalgia, and with an article entitled The Grand National Winners Who Wowed the Crowds on the Island. It's the Grand National at Aintree tomorrow, Saturday, and although the island is hundreds of miles from Aintree, we have had some of the Grand National's greatest heroes visit during the last 45 years. In 1980, islanders flocked to the Isle of Wight County Show at Northwood House to see not one but two Grand National heroes who had both won in the 1970s but had never met on a racecourse.
The first was Red Rum, the only horse ever to have won 3 Grand Nationals in 1973, 1974 and 1977, while the second was Specify, the 1971 winner. Red Rum's first victory in 1973 was legendary, as he was 10 lengths behind the great Australian chaser Crisp at the last fence, yet he battled on to force his head in front just 40 yards before the line. Both horses smashed the course record by some 19 seconds. It was previously held by Golden Miller, the horse who had won 5 Cheltenham Gold Cups in the 1930s. Red Rum's new record stood until 1990.
Rummy went on to win under top weight in 1974 and was then placed second in 1975 and 1976 before carrying top weight to victory again in 1977. Red Rum paraded in John Street Ride prior to arriving at the county show in 1980, where a guess the weight of the racehorse competition was held, which raised money for Haylands Farm Ride. Visitors to the 1983 county show were fortunate to see 2 more Grand National heroes, Aldeniti and his jockey Bob Champion, who won the 1981 race. This pair were famous for winning against all odds. Aldeniti had previously been crippled by leg injuries not once but 3 times, while Bob had been to the brink of death with cancer prior to their win.
The pair visited the island as part of their work for the new Bob Champion Cancer Trust. Bob signed many autographs for islanders that day, including some of the pages of his new book, Champion's Story. The 1971 winner, Specify, was very much in the island's own Grand National horse. He was a familiar sight in West Wight because he lived out his retirement in the grounds of Farringford Hotel Freshwater, which was owned by his owner Sir Fred Pontin of Pontin's Holiday Camps fame. The 1971 Grand National was one of the most competitive finishes ever, with 5 horses in the air over the last fence together, but it was Specify who gained the upper hand by just a neck over Black Secret.
As a young horse, Specify was bought for £300 by Arthur Freeman, a former royal jockey, who had previously won the Grand National on Mr. Watt in 1958. Aged 4, Specify won 3 successive events, but aged 6, he broke a bone in his head when he fell during a race. He made a comeback and was sold in early 1970 for £12,000 to Fred Pontin. Fred entered Specify in the 1970 Grand National, but he was brought down at Beecher's Brook on the second circuit. And after being sent to trainer John Sutcliffe, Specify returned for the 1971 National and was 14th in the betting at 28-1.
Things were looking hopeful for the owner, trainer and jockey, and there were many fallers in the early stages of the 1971 Grand National, including favourite Gay Tripp, who had won the previous year. Specify was well placed behind the tearaway leaders and managed to hold his position as more continued to fall by the wayside. The tension at the last fence was almost unbearable, as Specify was the last of the group of 5 horses who jumped the final fence in unison, but timed his winning run to perfection. Specify's form was moderate when he entered the 1972 race, and he remained in contention until the second Beechers, but only managed to come 6th out of 9 finishers.
According to County Press reports, he retired in 1972 and arrived on the island in September 1978, where a champagne reception at Farringford was held in his honour. He was greeted by his former jockey John Cook, Mrs. M. Topham, who was the former Aintree Course owner, and show jumpers David and Marion Mould, née Cokes, herself an Olympic silver medalist with Stroller in 1968, who were regular visitors to the island. Specify died in the 1980s and was buried at Farringford.
Moving on now to a headline that reads, Something in the Air, the island's role in the rise and fall of pirate radio. It's written by Alan Stroud. Readers of a certain age will remember the pirate radio stations in the early 60s. British pop music could be heard all over the world, except for Britain. The BBC had a monopoly and did not play pop music. In early 1964, that monopoly was broken by radio stations operating from ships anchored just outside the 3-mile limit where British law did not apply, stations such as Radio London and Radio Caroline. Eventually, there were more than a dozen pirate stations dotted all around Britain's coast. A little-known fact is that 4 of these ships were rigged by Spencer Rigging of Cowes, run by Harry Spencer. In a 1996 interview, he told John Hannam an Irishman, Ronan O'Rahilly, wanted to start a radio station. I kept getting phone calls from his partner, Alan Crawford, who said, "We want you to come and talk about masts and rigging." So I went to his office, the Merit Music Company in Soho. I didn't know it was going to be a pirate radio ship at that time. It was described to me as a weather ship. I went in and met a Mr. Thomas, who was an ex-BBC technician. He said, "What height of mast do you think you could put in a ship 170 feet long?" And I said, "About 190 feet, something like that." Then I met the Dutch captain and persuaded him that you could stand a mast up this size by telling him that his grandparents must have sailed around in vessels this size with a lot of canvas on, not just a radio antenna. With that, he had me in Amsterdam in 2 hours with no passport, no luggage or anything, and that was the start. I then got the job to mast and rig 2 other radio ships, Radio Caroline North, which was anchored off the Isle of Man, and Radio Caroline South, which was in the Thames estuary, where we met Simon D and Tony Blackburn. On the back of that, we went on to rig Radio Scotland and then Radio 270 off Scarborough.
The pirate radio stations were an instant success, and over the next 3 years they attracted millions of faithful listeners. Everybody loved the pirates, except the Labour government. And in August 1967 they introduced the Marine Offences Act, which couldn't stop broadcasts from international waters, but did make it illegal for British subjects or advertisers to have anything to do with offshore stations. And apart from Caroline, the pirates closed down. To replace them, Radio 1 was launched, but it was a poor substitute, and in response, amateur pirate stations sprang up across the country. One of them was here on the island, Radio Sound City, broadcasting from studios at Porchfield, or to be more precise, the bedrooms of 18-year-old Richard Brimson, then an apprentice at Plessy Cowes. Using a powerful medium wave transmitter built by Richard, the station attracted a lot of listeners during its short life and even had its own car stickers, but a photo feature in the Portsmouth Evening News was to be its undoing.
A reporter and photographer from the news were taken blindfolded to Sound City's secret operating base. The control room was what appeared to be an ordinary bedroom in a country cottage. Lining the walls was an impressive array of panels, tape decks, record players and assorted audio apparatus. In action behind a turntable was Leo, one of the disc jockeys, while 2 mini-skirted girls sorted records into playing order. All of the Sound City team were teenagers. During the week they worked as apprentices, motor mechanics, shop assistants and clerks. In charge of production was the driving force and brain behind Sound City, an 18-year-old known as Brillo. To the layman's ear, the reception quality over radio appears to be near perfect. Most of the equipment was made by Brillo. We purposely kept the costs down in case we get raided. That way we don't lose too much.
The cheeky headline to the newspaper article didn't help. Radio Sound City is alive and well, broadcasting its jingles and pop music and playing hide-and-seek with the post office. It was red rag to a bull. The post office, from their headquarters at Telephone House, Portsmouth, commented, "We were unaware of the station's existence, but now we know we will be making inquiries." And they did. One Saturday afternoon, shortly after the article appeared, post office officials descended on Porchfield and raided the station, forcing it to close down in mid-broadcast. Speaking today, Richard says, "I went into pirate radio with my eyes open. I knew I'd get caught eventually, and I'd already put aside £30, which was the average fine for operating a pirate station. But I was shocked when I was fined £150 with £15 costs. It took me a year to pay it back at £3 a week, and I was only earning £10 a week at the time."
Now we're going on to public information. This headline says, "Making sure our service is as good as it can be" by Jim Pegler. It's important for us to regularly monitor crime trends on the island and make sure that the policing service we provide to the public and victims' crime is as good as it can be. With COVID lockdown contributing to notable reductions in crime, it's sensible for us to compare how we're doing now to how we were doing pre-pandemic. I have been comparing the last financial year, April to April, to the financial year from April 2019, and I'm pleased to see reductions in certain crime types such as house burglary, business burglary and shop theft. While we are seeing a slight increase in assault reports, it's also positive to note the most serious violence is reducing. That's not to say that we're being complacent. However, it's still important for us to continue mapping these trends and taking appropriate action. When it comes to serious violence, we've had some notable successes through the courts of late, and we've also been proactive with our policing tactics. It's no secret that violence and drugs trafficking often go hand in hand, and at the beginning of March we conducted warrants in Ryde and Shanklin, as well as operations with Royal Mail utilising our police dogs to detect drugs. Turning to the courts, Liam Williams, aged 19, of Amherst Place in Ryde, was jailed for 32 months at the start of March after he stabbed a teenage boy in Puckpool. Emma Stafford, 41, of Meadway in Lake, was also jailed for 32 months at the beginning of March after she violently attacked a vulnerable elderly holidaymaker in Sandown. These sorts of incidents are very rare, and it's uncommon for assault reports to involve people who are not previously known to each other. Sometimes victims of crime may not be keen to pursue a prosecution, but my plea to the public is to please report all instances of violent behaviour to us. The behaviour of a violent person can escalate if it goes unchallenged. We want to be better at tracking these perpetrators and detecting violent crime. The more we know about it, the more we can do. The information from you gives us a strong understanding of where the problems persist, which in turn influences how our resources are allocated. I want to reassure people that if you witness crime and are worried about giving evidence, you can speak to officers about this and we can help you. If you know about crime but wish to be anonymous, then you can report this to the independent charity Crime Stoppers.
And now, under the feature of My View, we have Jim Gibbons giving us kind words for canine friends and some lovely pictures here of a black and white dog. My sister died recently, and on looking through old papers, I found some verses I had written about some of her dogs. Anne was a big benefactor to dog kind, taking on a series of dogs who were being ill-treated and giving them a happy, healthy life. And here's a little poem under Sally's new life. Shall I learn to love this lady after lifelong blows and knocks? Lick her hand while walking daily, let the tail go wagging gaily. Yes, and now I'll eat her socks. Judy lasted longest and is fondly remembered by all Anne's friends. As we know, dogs don't last so well as humans. And Judy less. Here's a poem. What like is a house newly dogless and still, the space full of empty, the air full of hush, good wishes, condolences, struggle to fill the vacuum where once canine life force would rush. Her echoes no longer resound from the walls. Her scent lingers longer. Its fading is slow. What to do with the blankets, the dog pull, the balls, 2 dog beds, the water bowl, dishes must go. A loss of companion must always be pain. Her photos and memories, though, will remain. One picture I have set on our Cleveland hill, a crystallized moment of triumph, a thrill. On Roseberry topping she pauses to gaze, and lauds it as lady of all she surveys. And another one, Judy's epitaph. Her job she has done, and her race she has run, protected her human, played games in the sun. Her charges she guarded, so zealous from harm, while showing unknowingly doggily charm. Our dogs are not given, they've only been lent. They leave us remembering lament. Oh, brothers and sisters, I bid you beware of giving your heart to a dog to tear. Can you identify the name asterisk? Well, you won't see that, but it was remembering ... apostrophe S in the last verse. They leave us remembering ... S. In my last article, I asked who said the art of government is to make 2/3 of the nation pay for the other third. Who was it? That was Voltaire.
And now here's what's on in the Shanklin Theatre throughout April. On Friday the 8th of April at 8 o'clock we have Count Arthur Strong. Saturday the 9th of April at 7:30, One Night of Elvis, Lee Memphis King. And then Thursday the 14th to Monday the 18th, the Island Savoyards present The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Wednesday the 20th of April at 7:30, it's Al Murray. Thursday the 21st at 7:30, the Diana Ross Story. Friday the 22nd at 7:30 is June Field. Sunday the 24th at 7:30 is Lionel, music of Lionel Richie. And then finally on Wednesday the 27th to Friday the 29th at 7:30 it's the Agatha Christie and the Village Hall Murders.
And go Quackers this Easter. The Ventnor Enhancement Fund Easter Duck Race returns this spring after a 2-year hiatus. The popular event is now in its 7th year. Held at Flowers Brook off Steep Hill Road, 50% more ducks will be racing this time round. The event will be held on Saturday, April the 16th, with prizes available for every winner. Ducks go on sale from 11 a.m. with the first race fixed for 11:15 a.m.
Funny man Julian Clary and a host of stars from RuPaul's Drag Race will headline the comedy night at the 2022 Wight Proms. The 6-day festival, extended to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, will run from August the 16th to the 21st in the grounds of Northwood House in Cowes. In its 5th year, Wight Proms will celebrate comedy, drag, opera, musical theatre and of course the last Wight of the Proms, while Friday night will be dedicated to a Wight laugh and will feature Julian Clary. Wednesday night is Isle of Pride. It will star RuPaul's Drag Race's Ella Vady, Kitty Scott-Claus and Choritha May in association with Isle of Wight Pride and Stone Crabs Theatre. On Tuesday, August the 16th, the brilliant Horrible Histories Theatre team takes to the stage. The multi-award winning and hugely popular children's show will stage The Terrible Tudors, featuring the horrible Henrys to end the evil Elizabeth. Expect to find out the fate of Henry's headless wives, learn about his punch-up with the Pope, meet Bloody Mary and see Ed fall dead in his bed. Thursday night, August the 18th, is Opera Night, featuring some of the best-loved arias, sensational singers from the Royal Opera House, Opera Holland Park and Glyndebourne. It will be hosted by broadcaster and Scala radio presenter Penny Smith. On Saturday, August the 20th, will be dedicated to musicals with G4 frontman Jonathan Ansell and Britain's Got Talent winner Jay McDowell. Expect local acts too, including Theatre Train, the Wight Proms Concert Orchestra, conducted by the Isle of Wight Symphony Orchestra's Jonathan Butcher, Company BUK and more. Tickets are on sale at whiteproms.co.uk and the early bird discount ends on May the 31st.
And creatives from Ventnor are launching a spring exhibition. Ventnor Arts Collective will exhibit their works from Tuesday to Saturday, April the 23rd, at the KU Gallery on Church Street. Open daily, except Sundays. From 11:30 to 3:30 p.m, the Ventnor Arts Collective Spring Exhibition features a range of work from the 20-strong group. From modern and classic paintings to sculpture, handmade jewellery and one-of-a-kind artisan gifts, the exhibition is a showcase for skills and disciplines practiced by the collective of locally based artists living within the P038 postcode. Having spent much of lockdown meeting over Zoom, the exhibition is the first chance this year to see and purchase the group's work. Formed 5 years ago, the Ventnor's Arts Collective includes a number of painters, ceramicists, textile designers, jewellers and sculptors. Since its inception, the group has attracted a diverse range of ages and skill levels. Many of the members sell their work in boutiques and galleries across the island. The group also supports local community projects.
In other news now, and taken from the county press, there's a headline that reads, "Help with energy costs rise." One-off payments to offset the rise in the costs of energy will be available soon as an Isle of Wight council team works to set up a new payment system. The non-repayable £150 is for council taxpayers in bands A to D, and eligible households will be identified and paid using council tax information. The money will go directly to the person whose name is on the bill and will be transferred automatically to those who pay by direct debit. If you would pay via another method, the Isle of Wight Council will contact you. A local discretionary scheme supporting households not entitled to the £150 is also being set up. A repayable £200 discount on energy bills will be available this autumn. Meanwhile, the Footprint Trust says islanders without a mains gas supply are also facing rising fuel costs, but have been forgotten about. Around 40% of Isle of Wight homes are without mains gas, said the charity. Around 1,900 houses use oil for heating, and 13,000 island houses have an energy performance rating of E or worse. According to the Trust, domestic oil prices have more than doubled per litre over the last 12 months, and the wholesale price of liquid petroleum gas has also doubled.
And now, an article entitled "Town Hall Rich List Reveals Top Salaries at County Hall." High salaries of Isle of Wight Council officers earning more than £100,000 per year have come under the spotlight in a list put together by the Taxpayers Alliance. Some staff are being paid more in yearly pension contributions than many people get in their annual salary. The island's highest paid officers appeared on the Town Hall Rich List 2022 for the financial year 2020 to 21, the height of the COVID pandemic. There are 6 officers on the list, the same names as the year before. Chief Executive John Metcalf, who left the administration in March, was on £135,998 per year. Add in his pension of £31,959 and he costs the taxpayer £167,957. Director of Adult Social Services, Dr. Carol Tozer, who has also since left the council, was paid £123,931 in her final full year, with a pension payment of £29,124. No replacement has yet been appointed, although Laura Gordian is currently in the interim post. Director of Regeneration, Chris Ashman, was on £113,931 with a pension payment of £26,774. For her role as Assistant Chief Executive and Chief Strategy Officer, Wendy Pereira was paid £109,607. She is now the interim chief executive. Add in her pension of £25,758 and she cost the taxpayer £135,365. Director of Neighbourhoods Colin Rowland was paid £105,850 with a pension of £24,875. Director of Corporate Services Claire Shand was on £103,979 with a pension of £24,435. John O'Connell, Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance, said taxpayers facing a cost of living crisis want to know they are getting value for money from their local authority leadership. With households having suffered through the pandemic and now struggling under colossal tax bills, the country needs councils to prioritise key services without resorting to punishing tax hikes. These figures will allow residents to judge town hall bosses for themselves and hold their local councils to account. At County Hall, as of December 2021, the median salary was £23,080 and the mean salary was £27,559. The pay to staff is different to the payments to elected councillors, who get a basic allowance of £8,231 plus special responsibility allowances.
Ireland back on motorsport map. The feedback organisers and promoters have got back from the drivers, spectators, sponsors and local businesses and even residents about the inaugural Sandown Sprint has proved so positive it may well return in the near future. Although no one is counting their chickens, the two-day event over last weekend on Sandown Seafront could not have been better received. One could say it was a roaring success. It undoubtedly helped the time trial by receiving a glowing endorsement from a motorsport legend, Italian ace, double world champion rally driver Mickey Biassion, who competed in it. But the fact around 70% of the competition came over from the southern region and beyond to fill the grid speaks volumes. The event, organised by Solent and the Isle of Wight Car Club, attracted a full grid of 96 cars, which was won by Islander Will Nichols, who owns the event's main sponsor company, the Island Car Centre. The leader on day one by just a 15th of a second, he knew he had to raise his game to maintain his lofty position, and just about made it, winning overall by 1/10 of a second. It really couldn't have been much closer. Event promoter and co-organiser Tim Addison was delighted by how well the weekend had gone. He said, "Overall, I'm very pleased with the first Island Car Centre Sandown Sprint. We enjoyed 2 days of exciting motor racing in almost uninterrupted sunshine, a huge relief given the talk of snow a couple of days earlier. I've learnt that organising a motorsport event on public roads is far from straightforward. I'm grateful to the work undertaken by Island Roads and the support of the Isle of Wight Council and Sandown Town Council. The Isle of Wight Car Club did a great job organising the competitors together with Farnborough District and South Sea Motor Clubs. Ireland-based John Peck Construction built us a tremendous track, and we are of course indebted to the hard work of our volunteer officials and marshals and on and off the track who make events like this possible. There was something very different about this spectacle happening near the town centre rather than at a specialist circuit like Brands Hatch or Thruxton. We hosted a really enthusiastic crowds of spectators, many of whom had never been to watch motor racing before. There was a great family atmosphere which the competitors all picked up on and enjoyed. The paddock was also full of smiling faces, with the drivers happily showing off their cars and letting young fans have a picture taken sitting behind the wheel. We already have a long list of things we know we could have done better, and we're looking forward to a proper debrief with everyone involved and to look at how the sprint could be improved in future. I've been delighted at the number of people over the weekend who have been asking if it will be repeated next year. That has to be a good thing."
And some more cheering news. Aptly can be enjoyed again. Works to repair a collapsed sewer at Aptly have finally come to an end, Southern Water has confirmed. It means Aptly, Longstay Car Park, North Walk and Garden Walk are all set to fully reopen at the weekend, and it has been a long time coming. While repairs at the site of the original collapsed pipe were completed back in November 2021, work continued in order to future-proof the system. Southern Water said it needed to bring Outdated 1980s pipework, which takes waste from 27,000 homes in Ryde, Nettleston and Binsted up to scratch. In January 2021, a small hole appeared in a pathway above the sewer and Southern Water started work to repair it. The impact on the local area and businesses at Apley was substantial, disrupting use of one of the island's most popular family beaches and parks for a whole season. Apley Sewer is one of the biggest on the Isle of Wight. The 1 metre wide pipe carries Ryde's wastewater and stormwater to Sandown for treatment. Reacting to the news, Councillor Michael Lilly said an immense amount of effort has gone into rebuilding the collapsed pipes, along with the future-proofing work to prevent further risk of collapse during the past 15 months. We met with Southern Water on site and they have done a fantastic job of restoring the area. A spokesperson for Southern Water said works to reinstate the areas impacted by the Apley sewer collapse are complete and Apley long stay car park, North Walk and Garden Walk are opening this weekend. We will be maintaining a small presence over the next few weeks while we repair the cover slab at the original location of the collapse, but this will not impede pedestrian or vehicular access. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the local businesses and public, along with the Isle of Wight Council, Ryde Town Council and Islands Roads, who have shown great support, understanding and patience. Although the road closure signs have been removed, it is advised to wait until the weekend to access the area.
And that brings us to the end, and so therefore it's goodbye from me, Morris.
And Megan.
Education, proposed improvements in touch. Vision impairment organisations have launched a new education framework called the Curriculum Framework for Children and Young People with Vision Impairment. It's the CFVI. Its main aim is to define and clarify how those between the ages of newborns up to 25 are to receive specialist skill development, by whom, and to recommend best practices across the board so that all visually impaired children have equal access to education. We speak to the RNIB's Head of Education, Karine Sutherland, about what this all really means. The Disabled Student Allowance, or DSA, is a scheme that visually impaired students at university can apply for to help fund specialist equipment, apply for mobility support around campus and get help with services like note takers. But in a report assembled by Life peer Lord Chris Holmes, it was found that just 29% of the number of students with a known disability were actually receiving DSA support. Moreover, those students who have accessed it have reported that the process is extremely slow and convoluted. We speak to two of those students, Ramneek Aluwalia and Paul Goddard, and to Lord Holmes about the recommendation he has put to government to improve the scheme. The DSA is administered by the Student Loans Company, who are soon to be releasing the final details of a procurement plan set to also improve the overall service of the DSA. We ask Dave Wallace, the SLC's Deputy CEO, about what this will entail.
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Tonight, our focus is very much on education. We're going to be hearing from the students struggling with the allowance designed to help with their extra needs at university.
And one of the big issues with DSA is that there is no clear-cut line as to what the university does and what the DSA does.
Then I was told it would be sorted out within 2 weeks. Then I was told it would be fast-tracked, which is 48 hours. Then I was told it would be fast-tracked and that would be 7 days.
Well, will proposed reforms solve problems like this? But we start by looking at a new across-the-board framework for the way visually impaired children are educated, what they're taught, who by, and covering not just the academic curriculum, but things such as daily living skills, getting around, personal care. You might be surprised that such a framework doesn't actually already exist, but it doesn't, and teachers, education academics and charities concerned with visually impairment have felt it necessary to produce these root and branch proposals. To find out more about them, I'm joined first by Careen Sutherland. She's Head of Education at the Royal National Institute for Blind People and a qualified teacher of visually impaired children, or a QTVI, as you may hear them described. Careen, I'm interested in why this framework has been produced, because these aren't new proposals. You know, you must have thought there was something wrong in the way things are being delivered at the moment. So why this framework now?
So we know that a child with a vision impairment requires a lot of additional skills to supplement their learning and to enable them to access the world around them. View, the vision impairment education workforce, wrote a paper in 2019 which clearly identified a number of specialist curriculum frameworks, and none of which had statutory status. There was a lack of clarity about what should be taught and by who. So we identified that this was something that was missing in the UK to support children with vision impairment.
I mean, you are a qualified teacher of visual impairment, and one of the feelings I got was that teachers like yourself are being used in the system at the moment more to administer than to teach. Would that be fair?
I think that the role has become ever more demanding. We are required to do specialist teaching and also oversee the access to all those other areas. So the role has become very widespread and demanding. And this curriculum framework looks to clearly identify who should administer and teach those and which specialists should be involved.
Now, there was a time when much of the discussion about education of visually impaired children centred around where it was taught, special schools or mainstream, to put it simply. Now, that hardly gets a mention in this framework. Does that mean the debate about special versus mainstream is over? Shouldn't all teachers be taught those skills in their training?
One of the aims of this framework is to provide a common language, a shared vocabulary that the specialists can use, but also that mainstream teachers can access and understand, and families and young people themselves can use to advocate for those skills. There is a move, of course, towards every teacher being a teacher of SEND.
That's special educational needs delivery, isn't it?
Yes, and this framework encourages knowledge across the mainstream workforce, but also highlights that you need the specialists to teach some of those very special skills like Braille, technology, habilitation, which we're going to hear more about later.
In fact, we can hear about it now because, as you say, this framework does cover teaching of many other life skills, mobility, sensory development, skills to develop overall mental and physical well-being. Fiona Broadley represents Habilitation VI UK and is the Senior Habilitation Specialist at Birmingham City Council. Fiona, are most children getting this kind of training now?
Unfortunately, there is still a little bit of a postcode lottery, but I think that having brought out the curriculum framework, it makes people more aware of what they should be entitled to. So maybe we will get a little bit more equality brought across the country.
But that is a problem, isn't it? That, you know, as you say, this kind of training has traditionally been delivered through local authorities, and that in the end comes down to an issue of resources, and we know they've been squeezed over the last couple of decades. Local authorities vary in the prioritisation they give to it. Won't that continue to be a problem wherever it's taught?
I'm sure it will, but the fact remains that by creating this document, we have a benchmark against which parents, educational psychologists, everybody who is involved in supporting that child can measure what is being offered to that child. Then parents can challenge the local authority to try and get them put into place.
Can I ask you how easily this sort of thing can be woven into a mainstream timetable at a mainstream school?
It can be done. It is easier if you try and put it in place lower down the school. So in an ideal world, you don't want to be trying to compete against the timetable that is set up for a child to achieve at GCSE level, for instance, because every moment they're out of the classroom puts them further behind. The problem for children is always that unless they've got these other skills, these life skills, they can achieve all sorts of things academically, but they might never be prepared to go into the workplace. They might never have full ability to live independently. And so it's a balance, isn't it?
Yes, and Karine, if I can end on this balance, these proposals are all very well, but they don't have legal force at the moment. Who's going to make sure they actually happen?
Well, we're entering now the implementation phase of this work. So, and in terms of linking in with governments, we're working across all the governments to establish this with the relevant statutory guidance.
Karine Sutherland, Fiona Broadley, thank you both very much indeed. Now, the final section dealt with in this new framework is the transition to adulthood. And for many, that means, of course, being a student at college or university. But we're being told that for many, that experience can be blighted by the problems of getting the disabled student allowance. That's designed to cover the added costs visually impaired students incur for special equipment, added help with note-taking, learning to navigate a complicated new environment. Problems like these, described to us by two current students, starting with Paul Goddard, who was at the University of Law when his problems began.
I applied back in March 2021, as I usually do, to try and get the application going as soon as possible. And then it took until mid-September to actually make a decision, by which time the course had already started and I was being pressured by the University of Law to defer. It was very stressful because I knew that I couldn't start my course without the support actually in place. And I couldn't understand why it was taking so long when previously it had been sorted out quite quickly.
And did you ever get an explanation of that?
No, in fact, the University of Law were actually holding me accountable for the fees. They were saying that I had to pay my course fees because I hadn't deferred in time. Even though it wasn't my fault, it was purely because I didn't have the decision from DSA.
So in a way, you've been batted backwards and forth, really, in this whole process.
Yes, and given lots of contradictory information from DSA. So originally I was told that the reason it was so long was because they deal with applications for undergraduates first and then postgraduates. Then I was told that isn't true. They deal with them as they come in. Then I was told it would be sorted out within 2 weeks. Then I was told it would be fast-tracked, which is 48 hours. Then I was told it would be fast-tracked and that would be 7 days. Then I was told it would be fast-tracked and that would be 2 days.
What about the methods of communication? Because I think you had a few problems with that as well from the DSA.
Yes, that's right. So because of my vision impairment, I asked if they would provide the resources in large print. And this huge envelope arrived with, I would say, a form printed on A2 paper. And when I said to them, this actually isn't large print, because large print is enlargement of the text, not enlargement of the paper size, they said, oh, that's all we can offer. That's all we have access to.
My name is Ramneek Kaur Alawalia, and I'm a second-year electrical engineering student at a London university.
So, Ramneek, when did you realise that you had a problem? Because I think you didn't realise straight away, did you?
So, going into the DSA assessment, I've always had challenges throughout my education. And for me, I thought, finally, the DSA would be a great point of call for just getting the support I need, finally. And unfortunately, that's not how it came about. So some of the things I was going in and requesting were things like an iPad, because that's all I've ever known as a VI student in mainstream schools. And when I went to my needs assessor and asked, can I purchase an iPad? They said, well, no, you can't, because I had a previous iPad, which was much, much, much older. However, it didn't meet the standards that I wanted it to.
So because you already had a piece of equipment, they were saying you can't have another one, even though that would have been better for you?
Yes, exactly.
You had problem with the needs assessments that you had generally, didn't you?
Yes, I did. So my needs assessor, she didn't really understand sort of my requirements. There was a real lack of empathy. So for me as a student, I really had to, pluck the courage to go to her for support and ask. That sort of atmosphere wasn't positive at all. And it got to the point where I had to have, a member of my family sit in during these calls to make sure that nothing was said out of line.
How long have you been waiting for the equipment that you need?
To be honest, I've given up with the DSA. Most recently, I tried to put in a request for a new laptop, and the automatic response was again no. And as a result, I sort of took it into my own hands and have been finding grants and other charities to supply the equipment I need. At the beginning of my second year of university, I had asked for mobility support. And one of the big issues with DSA is that there is no clear-cut line as to what the university does and what the DSA does. And for that reason, there was a back and forth between whether mobility support should have been provided by the university or by the DSA.
I'd like to ask you both the same question. Paul first. What would you most like to see the DSA do? I mean, what are you really looking for to improve things?
I think the most important thing, Peter, is to not just try and have a one-size-fits-all solution to everyone with a certain disability. It's important to listen to the students.
And Ramneek, what about you? If you only have one wish granted, what would it be?
I think that it's almost like potluck at the minute, whether you get a needs assessor who wants to understand, who wants to help and, has that knowledge to do so. So my improvement would be having a team, available at hand, those who understand the specialist equipment for your disability, and then those who also understand it for your course. All those things come together to form a good package for a student ready, to thrive in education.
Ramneek Aluwalia and Paul Goddard. The University of Law, which Paul attended, say they sincerely apologise for the problems that Paul faced, and they say it's deeply committed to providing a high level of support for ensuring equal opportunity for disabled students, and so was disappointed that this led to Paul withdrawing his application. Well, someone who's taken a big interest in this problem is Lord Holmes, visually impaired himself, and he led a short debate on it back in September. Chris Holmes, you've just produced a number of recommendations, 20 in all, so we can't possibly mention them all. What do you think are the key things you want to happen?
The most important thing is to put the student at the centre of every element of the scheme. If DSA was run in that sense of a personalised agenda, student-centric, then you would have a transformation, not only in the experience, but in the number of disabled students coming through and succeeding in higher education. You heard from Paul and Ramneek, a prospective lawyer, a prospective engineer who should have been enabled and empowered. The disabled students allowance is a gem of a policy, and when it works really well. The difficulty is, for far too many people, it isn't working optimally, and for some, it isn't working at all.
Well, the allowance is administered by the Student Loans Company, and listening to that is David Wallace, who's its Deputy Chief Executive. David, the Student Loan Company are soon to be releasing the finer details of a DSA procurement, which is set to improve the service. But you've just heard the current problems with the DSA from the students themselves. I mean, what do you say to that? Because it's the delays, I think, which is possibly the thing which hits you most in what we've just heard.
First of all, sincere apologies to both Paul and Ramneek for any of the delays that they faced. We're working very hard to change the entire system. We know that the process takes too long. We know it is too complex. We know that the current system puts too much of an onus on them to take action and involves them contacting multiple companies. Ramneek's experience actually wasn't with the student loans company that operationalises the DSA, but actually, as she explained, with the needs assessment centres and the provision of the equipment, all of which is within the scope of the reforms that we are looking to tackle and improve.
Can I ask you specifically about one aspect of this, which seems particularly concerning? There's an average waiting time of 100 days, in other words, more than 3 months, between making your application and getting confirmation that you're on the scheme. That's not that you're going to get your equipment, but just confirmation that you're on the scheme. That's surely very alarming, isn't it?
The students with disability have a particularly longer and more complex journey to go through. The current process, which then, as I mentioned, requires customers with disability to make contact with needs assessment centres and then separately with the providers of either assistive technology or indeed training, is too fragmented. The reforms which we are announcing will move to a very different commercial model with a smaller number of organisations who will work across the piece and will have end-to-end responsibility for all of these activities, and most importantly, tracking and contacting the customer and being proactive in guiding the customer through the process. We, SLC, will be holding these partners to account against a series of quality metrics.
We had hoped that you would be able to actually tell us, some of these proposals, and there have been delays before in between promises and announcements. Can you tell us when precisely we're actually going to hear about these and when they're going to be put into practice?
This week. So it is just going through the final legal sign-off. Current arrangements do not allow for any contractual obligations between the providers of services, the individuals, and us as the organisation that operationalises government policy. We're putting all of that in place, which will allow us to hold all parties to account.
Let me just finally go back to Lord Holmes. You are specifically putting recommendations to the government. What's happening about those? What's the timescale on those?
I submitted my report to the Minister responsible for higher education. I'm hoping that all 20 recommendations will be taken on board because the vast majority of them are relatively straightforward, incredibly doable. That's not an end point by any means. This is about getting it right for Paul, for Ramnik, for the disabled students of today, so they can feel that irrespective of sight impairment, irrespective of any disability, higher education can be a route for them and can be a route where they are enabled to succeed in it.
Lord Holmes, David Wallace of the Student Loans Company, thank you both very much indeed. As always, we want to hear about your experiences, good and bad. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. You can leave your voice messages on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio manager Simon Highfield. Goodbye.
Scaffolding and Skips News, week commencing the 11th of April 2022. Newport, 24 Scarrott's Lane, Guildhall High Street, the Old Mill St Cross Lane, Boots Chemist, 122 to 126 High Street, Newport Minster St Thomas Square.
And Ryde, Area 52 and 38 Castle Street. The Crown Inn Pub, St Thomas's Square, High Street. 24B, Union Street.
Ryde Skips, 53 St Michael's Avenue, 21A, 22A Cross Street.
Seaview, Warren Boats, Blewett Avenue.
Brading, 74 and 76 Lower Furlongs.
Sandown, 42A Fitzroy Street. Bellamy's, 71 High Street. Trevilian Jewellers, 73 High Street.
Shanklin, Sunny Bay Flats, 2 Alexandra Road. Boots, 1 Regent Street.
Cowes, 33, 34 Ladbrokes High Street. Jersey Cottage, Market Hill, Sun Hill. 126 High Street. 70 Island Sailing Club, High Street. Old NatWest Bank, 104 High Street.
Cows Skips, 31 Mill Hill Road, 31 Tennyson Road, and 43 Moor Green Road.
Gernard Skips, 2 Albert Road.
Ventnor, Hursts at 4 High Street, 29 Pier Street.
Ventnor Skips, 16 Ocean View Road, Methodist Church, High Street.